College in Newburgh, New York, and I am the director with Dr. Jeffrey Kahana of the Center on Aging and Disability Policy. It's Wednesday at 10 o'clock, so you know where we are. You know, we're at this video cast of ProActive Caring School Exchange. Now the question is, how did we arrive here? This is our 14th video chat. And how we arrived here was really as a reaction to the reality of COVID. 3 years ago, our center applied for a grant, an RFP from the New York State Developmental Disability Planning Council. And Elaine Sproat.
Developmental Disability.
Yes, Developmental Disability Planning Council, as I said. And Elaine Sproat is on the chat here with us. And Elaine and I have known each other for 30 years. And I reached out to her and she helped architect the grant. And we received the funding for 3 years from New York State DDPC. What was the grant about? Reaching out to families and families with family members with special needs, and to be able to provide mindfulness-based stress reduction. The task was twofold. One, be present. Two, be present and look for, bring into the program 1,000 families. So the first year, based upon a model that came out of Vanderbilt, we were running small groups, 6 weeks, and then we stress reduction. And then we realized that families trying to get to those groups, it would be too stressful. So we did 3 weeks online, 3 weeks face-to-face. And the reason I'm providing this summary is because of the fact that this is our last video cast of, and I'd like you to watch Lisa and Peggy's eyes, if you can see them at this point, of season 1. Because of the fact that what happened is that we were doing the small groups, we modified them, but we realized that we would never reach the numbers of 1,000. So then for the second year, we were working our way throughout the state and we were doing train-the-trainer models. And we were starting to increase the numbers and reaching our goal, heading towards our goal. And then COVID came in. And in an informal discussion with Peggy and Lisa back in mid-March, it was the discussion. We have all this content information. Peggy and Lisa had joined us 8 months before this to work with school districts, Peggy as the school psychologist, Lisa as the parent advocate, and be able to do in-services in school districts and provide opportunity for exposure of our program to special ed programs. But there was no way we could assemble. Schools were empty. So in an informal discussion, we launched ProActive Caring School Exchange, which started out as a video chat, the first one between Peggy, Lisa, and I. Lo and behold, here we are 14 weeks later. And it has really, as I say to them offline, they have no idea, okay, the impact that they've had on the program and on the families. Across the period of those 14 weeks, Lisa as the parent advocate meditator and Peggy as the school psychologist advocate address different problems. And I've been a witness to both of them working very, very hard at making this happen. And you'll see evidence of their work. So here we are, the 14th one. We're continuing on. And I think that this is an opportunity for us. We talked about how can we summarize this? So at one point in the early part of the discussion, Lisa and Peggy were immediately going to put together an overview of the themes of the 14 weeks. And then it hit me a couple of days ago, why do that? Why not have that discussion right around our website? And it's an opportunity, and we don't really refer to it as a website, we refer to it as a ProActive Caring Digital Resource Center. Because what we want to be able to do, and we knew we wanted to be able to do this, we just didn't think we would do it so rapidly because of COVID, is we wanted to do online training, and you're going to see evidence of that. We wanted to create a ProActive Caring Digital Resource Center. You're going to see evidence of that. And then we wanted to be able to provide family support, and you're going to see evidence of that. So with that, what I'm going to do is I am going to share my screen. And let's see where this goes. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Beautiful. So there is the ProActive Caring Digital Resource Center. We spent a lot of time in the fine details. Elaine is unbelievably focused on that type of, outcome. And the fact is that you see up here, you have no idea the amount of discussion back and forth that we had, and even making sure that the colors seemed to be the right colors for us, the logo. Elaine brought on her friend in contact, Dugan, and Dugan has just an incredible ability to fine tune these things, and you'll see evidence of that. Yasmin Kautstein we brought on in order to help create the website. We have students involved, Diana Valentin Miller, and I'm a big believer that people need to be recognized for their work because of the fact that this is unbelievable outcome, but there's zero way that I would be able to show you what I'm showing you if it wasn't for a team. So here we go. So what you see is got stress, we can help. We arrived at that in discussion with Teresa Drum from Parent Network of Western New York. We were up there doing a train the trainer. We came up with our brochures. We were going in with our perspective, because the thing is, and I said this to Peggy and Lisa, they really represent what we want to represent. And what do we want to represent? We want to represent that the message is being delivered twofold, but in one voice. And the twofold perspective is the parent with the lived experience, in this case, Lisa, and the practitioner with the lived experience, in this case, Peggy. Lisa always gives the example, and Lisa's very bright and very well prepared to go to an IEP meeting. And she opens up that door and she immediately freezes because of the fact that she's going into a world that, and some of those discussions, if you've been involved in IEPs, some of those discussions are not productive. A lot of them are unbelievably productive and supportive, but sometimes there can be a lot of conflict. And, even in our informal discussions, wouldn't it be great if every IEP started with a moment of meditation? That's a different thinking. That's a different way of doing business. So that's how we arrived here. So what you're seeing is, the homepage, got stress, we can help. And that came out of the discussion with Teresa. She said, our parents, need to, identify with this. So we had, the terminology, proactive caring, the train the trainer. But that was us, doing the talking. And once we started to embed our thinking and our voices in with the Parent Network of Western New York, this is the tagline: got stress, we can help, supporting caregivers of individuals with disabilities. On the bottom, you see that this was a partnership between our Center on Aging and Disability Policy at Mount St. Mary College, community service providers throughout the state. I had worked for the OMRDD for 22 years. And as a result of that, I had an understanding of the network, even though it has changed. And I had a lot of connections with the people, even so some of those have changed. But a lot of the people that have helped us, move this forward are people that I've met 30 years ago, starting off as colleagues and then becoming friends, like Nancy DeSanto up at Lexington ARC. She's been unbelievable. New people along the way, Sandy Bronsley, Barbara Russell, and it goes on and on. It could be like a who's list, but it's community service providers, family caregivers to support you as you care for a person with special needs. And you'll also see, and I'm not going to go there yet, but I'll come back to this. There's a link here where if you hit it, it brings you to our e-resource manual, which is a free downloaded manual. And that's something that we knew we wanted to do, and it's only with the connections of Dugan and the connections of Parent Network and Dr. Mindy Sakara. All these people came together, and the product is this here. So about us, and I'm going to go through this very quickly. This page just talks about, how we arrived here, with the support of DDPC, based upon the model that came out of Vanderbilt Kennedy University Center for Excellence. These are the people we want to recognize, because of the fact that they've been with us: Sharon, Roger, Yasmin, Peggy, Barbara, Lisa, Dugan, Diana. It goes on and on and on. And Alyssa J. Williams, and you'll see some of the work that she does. She's the founder of the Hudson Valley Healing Center. And then we recognize some of the community partners, and obviously, always from beginning to end, our special thanks to New York State DDPC. Now we go over here. So what you saw on the front page is a link. And that link will bring you to what I'm going to show you now, or you can do it through a downloadable thing. And here we are, register to access the book for the self-paced course. We wanted to make sure that people were aware of the fact that it is a self-paced course. We never had any illusion, and I've said this all the way through these school exchange forums. We never had any illusion that people were going to show up on a Wednesday afternoon, a Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock when they're dealing with the rhythm of life. The reason that we did it this way and went completely, online and virtual, and then shipped it out through our email mailing list, is that people can do it at their own time, at their own place. So you go here, and here comes the book, the manual, Proactive Caring Caregiver Support Program. Now, I've already been through it, so what you're going to see is not necessarily what you're going to see. But you go to get the course, and then it'll ask you to sign up, which is just a quick email address. But since I'm already signed up, then I can go to login, and I have it saved. And now I'm in. So when it says to me, go get the course, it's going to say completed. Well, for you, it's not. And you can do it at your own pace. And it's also a downloadable PDF. One of the reasons that we see, that's what it says, course completed. But this is something, and this is just wizardry that we are so proud of. And this came from Dugan's work. But here's the book there, it's downloadable. It's not, this is not the downloadable version, this is the one that's on the screen. But put your seatbelts on now, because here we go. All right, and it is just top shelf. So by hitting these arrows, these next arrows, what you can do is you get a presentation of what a book would look like, okay, if you were holding it and turning the pages, okay, and in here, and the thing that, and again, the Digital Resource Center is a living document. So the fact is that we're always fine-tuning it as we move forward, because beyond the manual, and you'll see evidence of this, we also have other resources that are available right now, and another resource that will be available probably in the next 10 days as it's being finalized, that can be integrated and weaved into this work. So the fact is, it's not just a manual, but it's all the supporting documents. So let me get out of there. Hopefully I won't say goodbye to everybody, no? All right, let me go over, where am I? There I am. Is that it? Okay. So that's what happens when you go to the Proactive Caring e-manual. And then we're fixing things like, somebody noticed that, the drop-down menu gets blended in there. So we'll fine-tune that stuff. And that's the beauty of July and August and September. These are the mindful minutes. We contracted with Alyssa Jill Williams from the Hudson Valley Healing Center, and she mirror image the manual. So what she did is these are 1.5 to 2 minute mindful minutes. And I have a private practice, and some of the individuals have no connection to the arena of disabilities, but I've sent them to this website because of the fact that it's so rich with material that can be used in order to deal with stress reduction. And what's the story? And Lisa and Peggy will give voice to this in a minute when we get to the school exchange overview. But we wanted to be clear. Jeff and I talked a lot about this. We say meditation, and all of a sudden people have images of yoga mats and lotus positions in 45-minute periods. That's great, but that may not be, that's not possible immediately. And anybody that does have a practice, and Lisa will tell you, straight out, it starts with a minute, starts with 30 seconds. So then Jeffrey and I talked about, should we be saying things like not just meditation, but micro meditation? Should we be saying things like, and changing the image? Should we be saying things like pause thought? Because what Lisa brings to the table, and I know that, because there's been applause for this all the way through, sometime during her exchange today, I would really ask Lisa if, again, you could provide us with the exercise, because it's so powerful, the different exercises you do. But it really starts with a moment. I heard somebody say in one of these exchanges, I've started to treat myself like a friend. That was a powerful statement. I heard somebody else say outside of this exchange, chaos is a choice. That's an interesting statement. I had a friend one time that told me that she was so overwhelmed with things. And I said, what about a time management program? And she said to me, I don't have time for a time management program. And I think that's an interesting statement. And I think that here, and I'll give you evidence of one, you can see they're titled down here, initial questions, perspective, stress, reducing stress. Let's just take this one. So what we're going to do is, you see the way that they're subtitled, the Mindful Minute Module 1A, and I think we're going to change the top title. I don't know yet. We'll talk about that. But there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H for Module 1, and then you'll find the same thing for Module 2 and Module 3. So reducing stress. I'm not going to play the whole thing.
Hi. When I look back at all the worries I remember, the story of the old man who said on his deathbed that he had had a lot of trouble with his life, most of which never happened. Winston Churchill. Reducing stress. It's in the news, it's on our minds, it's what we think about. We think about our stress, how to get.
So what you can see is it's a, I don't know, it's a 1.5-minute clip on how to stay in the moment. I attended a training one time up in Cape Cod for a week on mindfulness as a therapeutic intervention. And the presenter said, people that focus only on the future, people that focus only on the past, it's about depression. People that focus only on the future, it's about anxiety. And your role as a therapist is to try to help people stay in the moment. So the idea of these mindful minutes to support the work is an opportunity to, let's go back here, digital link, hold on a second. I think I can just go back here. Yes, is an opportunity to support the work of the book, the manual. And then down here, we have actually relaxation exercises. And these run for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. They're from different practitioners. And again, these are things that you can do in the silence and in the rhythm of your own life. Within 10 days, we will have another drop-down tab underneath of that. And that'll be the work that Mindy's doing, because what she's doing is, instead of we're just not providing somebody a manual and say, hey, good luck. She's putting together these self-paced webinars that walk people through the actual module. Then we go to the resource page. And in the resource page, here we go. So we have a dedicated tab for school exchanges. So at the beginning, it talks about, what the school exchange is, late March through June 20th, maybe with Lisa and Peggy right now on the video cast. Maybe I could change that to June 2021, but that's another story, okay? But each week they addressed a different topic, and addressed it they did. The first one started off with just the three of us having a discussion. Then we get into, some of the topics that they created. So here, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I will ask them, as I just give this example, kind of like the lessons learned from this whole, overview. But this is it, mindful behavior, managing behavior in a mindful way. Here they come. We start off. Well, good morning. My name is Dr. We start off with just a
like raise every flag, and it was like, wow, how do I join? So that's how I met him. So and
then Lisa looks at it from a behavioral perspective, from a mindfulness perspective,
for parents.
And then Peg looks
we
at
may
it
all
from
know these things as professionals, but
perspective.
again, parents might not know these kinds of strategies at home. And some of the things.
So from there, when we put it up on our website, not only do they have the actual video, but they have the handouts, and they worked really hard with these handouts. So here's Peggy's week 1, behavioral management. What is behavior management? I know that this stuff really rings extremely well. Here's Lisa's perspective, stress release breathing. Okay, and as the video casts go on, the content is unbelievably evolves, and the fact is even the structure and the process of it. I know that there's a value add with this when the fact is that a municipality contacts me and asks me, hey, listen, can we put this up on our website for the county? The answer is absolutely yes. I know there's a value add for this when I had 2 agencies talk about the fact they want to use it for in-service training. Yes. I know there's a value add for this when last Friday, Jeff Kahan and I are on this national platform through Access. Elaine joined us. And the next thing you know, here we are, we're talking to a group that I didn't even know existed prior to the beginning of this grant. And it's called Access. And my biggest regret is I didn't know that they existed, even in my earlier work. And Kate McSweeney has been unbelievable. She invites Jeff, and it's all about connections. My dear friend Matt Janicki says we should know Tom Buckley. And prior to COVID, we were talking with Tom Buckley from YAI about how to develop a presence in New York City. And from the first phone call, he's been extremely supportive. And then when we went completely online, he said, when we sent this out, because what happens is that we do this video cast, and then what happens is we send it out by the end of the day, through our mailing list. Tom accessed it through Matt. Tom then sends it to Kate. Kate sends it through her network of 1,200 agencies. And the next thing you know, Jeffrey and I are on their video cast last week. So it is all about connections. So before I go any further, Lisa, Peggy, okay, the thinking today is the connection between mindfulness and, the behavior and mindfulness. So talk to us. What do the two of you see?
As you were talking, I thought of something. Hi, everybody. So, the idea of mindfulness is something you do for yourself. And we talk about behavior. There was a big campaign to drink enough water. You're supposed to drink 8 glasses of water a day because it's really good for you. It helps you. It's, and the idea is to be very conscious of it. Even if you have an app like, the weight loss apps like MyFitnessPal or whatever, there's little buttons, or Lose It, there's little buttons that you can press when you drink enough water. Well, what if we approached mindfulness the same way? I don't think we understand enough how mindfulness helps us to, well, I shouldn't say we don't understand that, but what I mean is we can't consciously absorb necessarily how mindfulness changes our behavior and changes the way we feel. So if we just did our little mindful, did we drink our little, 1 minute mindfulness, while I'm, washing the dishes, or while I'm washing my hands, or, while I'm taking a shower, just little bits. It's like, oh, okay. And just to breathe, be conscious and just take that breath. And that will create, that links together, all those moments link together. And you'll see the positive results, and you'll see how it affects your behavior.
I was watching the two of you create this. And if you look at the topics, these are topics that you picked. Managing behavior in a mindful way, combating fear and anxiety, living in a mindful way, increasing sleep, mindful eating and nutrition, how to be grateful in challenging times and increasing compassion, create the world in your own home, create your sanctuary, managing parent, guardian, anger and frustration in a mindful way, using mindful techniques and promoting good communication skills, building confidence and self-esteem, both internal and external, how to let change happen, dealing with change peacefully and with intent. And you notice for the first 10 weeks, the format that we established is that I would be the moderator, and Peggy and Lisa would be the presenter. So they got together beforehand, obviously virtually on phone, and they figured out what's the message they wanted delivered. And then we roll into June. because don't forget, we were only going to the end of April. And as you're going through this, and as I'm going through scrolling up and down, we've never really had an opportunity to take a look at the completed product, you know, and you've heard me say, you know, all the time, unbelievable job, but look at what you've created. I mean, it really is rich. And that's why we're coming back for season 2, but that's another story. That's another story. But here is, so then in June, then we flipped it. So in June, what the format would be is that I would be the moderator, Peggy and Lisa would be the facilitators, and then we would bring on people with the lived experience. So we had a teacher who was retired. Lisa, you know, they say this, you never forget a good teacher. And when we talked about getting people on, Lisa said immediately, boom, I know who I'd like. And talk to us a little bit about your connection, Lisa.
Sure. Well, that's with Kathy Halleck. And, you know, I have a son who's 19 years old now with multiple disabilities. And Kathy was just a teacher who really connected with him, where many people couldn't access him. All they saw was on the surface. Kathy was able to connect very quickly with who was inside, and just brought him out in a beautiful way, you know, with humor and just incredible understanding and respect all the way through. So, and
the one thing that she brought to the table, and you recognize it in working with her, humor.
Yeah,
she was
incredible.
So then the next week we go to somebody who's actually in the lived moment. Lisa, do you want to talk about that?
Sure, and that's Carla. And Carla is, Gabriel's in a wonderful program now, which works in the community, and hopefully that will start again in September. And Carla just has worked with these kids for a long time, and she's a champion for my son and for all the others in the program, to get them connected to the community. And she herself has a mindfulness practice, and she understands the importance of it, and just has incredible patience to really understand each child's individual needs. She's like a master at that. And it's incredible. The growth has been amazing. I've seen it. I've seen the incredible growth in my son.
And both of these women, you know, I've never met them face to face, but I feel as though I know them based upon their style, you know, and how they were able to come across, you know, in this virtual world.
Yeah.
The week 13, how to bring mindfulness and problem solving, that was Dr. Patricia Zyganovich and Dr. Mike Hibbert. Obviously, it became very clear when you saw Patricia Zyganovich on the phone, on the video thing, somebody said, Peggy, is that your twin sister? Okay, because that's my sister-in-law, Peggy's sister, and they look very much alike. And Pat is a retired principal from North Salem. Mike is a retired assistant superintendent from North Salem, and they have a book in press called Think It Through. And they did an incredible presentation about how to, because don't forget, many of us, we're not coming in from the mindfulness world. I mean, if I say that anybody that out of the whole team that really represents the mindfulness practice approach more than anybody else, it's you, Lisa. But the fact is, you're very clear about the fact is that's not the world I grew up in. I was walking my dog, and it hit me that with all the things going on in my life, I didn't want to live like this anymore, and I needed to do something. And that was like kind of like that enlightening moment. Next thing I know, you know, Pat and Mike were so pleased to have this opportunity to speak. Next thing I know, now they're starting to work on, you know, other, you know, venues about how to go about building their model of problem solving into this mindfulness approach, which is really what? Staying in the moment, taking a breath, because I have to go back to that, you know, that it's chaos is a choice. So Lisa and Peggy, as you look at these topics, and Peg, I'm going to come to you. What is it that you would hope that in a summary way, that people would walk away from your years of experience as an administrator, school psychologist, now, you know, doing this school exchange thing? What would your takeaway message that you would hope that people would walk away with? You're muted.
Um,
No, I'm going to go to Peg first. But
okay,
Peg,
go ahead.
Am I still muted? No.
No,
Okay.
no.
So I think I was struck week after week by how similar but different our models were. So for example, when I looked at each topic and did a little bit of research, there were behavioral strategies sort of for each topic, but also embedded in those strategies were many suggestions about mindfulness. So relaxation, mindfulness, taking a breath, all of those things were sort of embedded in some of those other behavioral kinds of strategies. And I found that very interesting. So for example, when you're dealing with a behavioral problem, one of the things is sort of planned ignoring or trying to just not focus on a behavioral problem that might be coming up with your child. And so the tie-in between those strategies and the tie-in between being mindful, being in the moment, taking a breath, waiting it out, so to speak, always struck me. Every week when we were planning, I would often think, okay, I don't know how I'm going to tie this in with Lisa, but somehow it always worked in that the research often showed, yes, these are the definitions, these are the behavioral strategies, these are the things you can do, but also embedded in there are some other techniques that are relaxation and mindfulness. So I was struck by that. Even with the last week, with the problem solving strategies that Mike and Patricia had, there was taking a breath, re-looking at it, kind of coming up with some strategies and retrying things. And in a behavioral world, that's often the case. You try something, it might not work, it might work depending on what you're trying to either increase or decrease with your family member. And then you relook at the problem again and you come up with some different strategies. So I guess overall and overarching, I was always struck by how things tied together.
Great. Lise?
Yeah, I loved working with Peggy. When we talk and have conversations, it was like, and she'd say what she was doing, and I'm like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can figure out how to make that, connected to mindfulness. And I agree totally, Peggy, that there was always a magical connection that really worked. And I think the overview that I like to take from that mindfulness perspective is for people to understand that they're worth it. They're worth doing this, that it's totally accessible for anybody and everybody. You can't do this wrong, and not to get discouraged, because you need to take the time to let yourself settle, to let your ego kind of settle down and say, okay, I'm going to take a break and I'm just going to sit here and relax and see what happens. And, so all these things I hope would be helpful for a particular situation, or just, overall in a completely holistic way to say, you know what, I'm worth becoming the best version of who I can be. And this can help me do that.
And I think that woman that joined us that time that said, I've started to learn how to treat myself like a friend, and that's a nice thought. That's a nice concept. And I think that that's something that you have really amplified. And then Peggy supporting it as well with the idea of kind of like the behavioral strategies of how to go about doing that. I mean, I'm still taken by things like the visual of the brag box. I'm still taken by the visual of, just the mindful moment, Lisa, that you continue to bring to the table about, just practicing it. And I'm going to ask you if you could do that before the end of this video cast. But before we do that, what I want to do is I want to just go back here for a second and take a look at some of the videos. These are the other things. There's videos. And this, again, is a living document. This is something that Dr. Loretta Piles did. She wrote a book on mindfulness practice, holistic self-care, the healing justice thing. And we were able to capture that at one of our train the trainers Here is the National Alliance Caregiver Report. And when you come back here, and you continually come back here, there will be more content because it's continually being added. Then we go to the newsletter. Elaine Sproat has done a spectacular job with these newsletters, and they're all cataloged here. So here is the one in June. So what this is the Proactive Caring e-newsletter. We send it out with our video stuff and our school exchange material. And through dialogue with between Elaine and Dugan, what they're going to do now is they're going to, for the July one, we're going to put a couple of different ads in as well. But for the July one, they're going to brand the colors here very similar to the colors of our campaign, of our initiative, which is great. And Elaine does a great job with this, not only providing like an overview of something we're doing that month, but also contact information, not only for ourselves, but for others. Okay, so here is some text for caregiver work. Here's the UCLA Mindfulness Awareness, tremendous amount of resources on that. And then, you know, the focus on the insight timer. I mean, this is great stuff. And Elaine has done a real unbelievable job with that. So then we go over to the contact us. You know, there's a variety of ways to contact us, both via email, via social media sites. We've been able to launch a YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook, and Elaine started the Facebook page prior to us, you know, going completely online. And now with the support of Dugan, I mean, they're really, you know, boosting it. I didn't even know what the heck that meant, but, you know, the terminology of Facebook of boosting it, and Twitter. The other thing that we're proud of, and it's in process right now, is that we are taking our manual and we are having it translated into Spanish. And it's being translated into Spanish by a parent advocate as well. So not only will the words be there, but also driven by the heart. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is you got stress, we can help. Here, as I didn't want to go initially, but this is when you hit the link, you know, it takes you to that thing that I showed you in the drop down. People say, well, how can we help? How can you help? You can promote this. You can circulate it through your networks. Jeffrey did a literature review. And one of the things that we find is that responsive surveys of any type are increased by how familiar you are with the people you're asking to respond. So as an educator, years ago, I would go into a class at the end of the semester. I hand out student evaluations, and I'd hand them out, point the student to, you know, distribute them. I would walk out of the room. That student would collect them, and then they'd be sent over to the library. 100%, you know, response. Now we don't do that. Now most academic institutions do everything online. So the college sends out the faculty survey. You get about 25%. And the reason is because there isn't the same connection between the college and the student and the faculty member and the student. And Jeffrey said, well, the easy way to resolve that is just have the faculty member send a note out to the students. Can you please respond to the survey? So one of the things that we know is that the parent groups, the agency groups that know their people, when they ask to have these types of things, you know, initiated, you know, engaged, it goes up. So those of you that are watching this, those of you that have access to networks or friends or support groups or Facebook pages, we ask you to please, you know, the opportunity here would be to highlight this, promote this, because we are very, very proud of what the outcome has been. And the reality is that it's a free downloadable resource. And I don't mean to speak on behalf of Peggy and Lisa, but I will at this point. The one thing that they were able to get across throughout all of their stuff is that you don't have to do this alone. Okay, navigating systems, whether it be during school, during COVID, during summer, you know, we're available, they're available. Okay, and they've made that clear on so many different ways about, you know, you don't have to do this alone. You know, people want to know, how do you navigate an IEP process or ask for an IEP during the summer? We have experts at the table, both from the lived experience and from the administrative experience. So with that, you know, I want to say that I want to open this up now for a few minutes of dialogue. and then ask Lisa at the end if she could, not really the end, it's really going into season 2, but that's another story, but you know, do the exercise with us. But again, we are so proud of this and so grateful for the support of New York State Developmental Disability Planning Council. So could we open this up for observations, reactions, reflection? Please.
As a photographer, I love the imagery that you chose, Elaine. Really great. This homepage looks beautiful. It just starts out with a nice feel of a visual image. I think the book layout is really clean, and it lends itself to start and get back to it, like you were saying, in my own pace. And I think that that's really helpful. I'm wondering, is there a place anywhere in the material that I could pose a question to Peggy or Lisa within the material, or for resource purpose, if I have a different idea or another related question? When we say we're available, are there email names or maybe a chat box or a place where a message would go and then I would receive an answer at another time?
That's a great recommendation. So leading up to this week, I've talked to Peggy and Lisa about the Lisa and Peggy corner, the Peggy and Lisa corner. The fact of maybe doing a 1.5, 2-minute, 3-minute video once a week and sending it out. Because they really, even though they, you know, hemmed and hawed about, you know, not about getting involved, but about how wonderful this is, you know, they're very, you know, humble, both of them, a sense of humility. But the fact is, they really, their collective voice really added so much to our presence. And I love that idea, and we will address that, you know, with the structural part of the website. But having like Peggy and Lisa, Lisa and Peggy, and I say it that way intentionally because it's two voices as one. And set up some type of chat thing where they would be notified, and then we can do this exchange. Now that's beyond my wizardry, but not beyond the wizardry of the team that we've assembled. And you know, I know you commented about Elaine with the picture. Although it looks gentle and calm, you have no idea how much time in exchanges and things like that were back and forth until we really felt as though we got it right. So yes, definitely applause to her for that. Elaine?
We also have the Facebook private group that can be a chat group. And we specifically modified it. Originally, the idea was that it would be a chat group just for the caregivers. But we realized that the hallmark of this program really is the communication between the parent caregivers or other caregivers and the providers. So we made sure to modify that. Now we are inviting both providers and family members to join that chat group. And I don't know, Larry, if it actually, if that got onto the website. I remember talking about it, and I don't remember if we put it under the contact us or under some other place.
It's in the back about resources, but I think that's a good point. And then we'll talk to the wizards to see what they think, you know, the technology wizards, you know, should it be on the website or should it be on the Facebook page? But that's a good point, because when you go here, you know, and you go down here, these are all active links that will take you to those different places.
Well, the Facebook takes us to the Facebook page, not to the Facebook group.
Right. And the fact is, and again, you know, and you and I have talked about this offline, I don't know whether or not we have to create another entity underneath the entity, but I think that, you know, as far as the private part of it, but I think that's something that, you know, just like we're highlighting over here, you know, this, maybe some other place, or maybe on the school exchange or here. But again, we can talk about that with the technical group, about getting that connection with Peggy and Lisa to continue the discussion. And that's a really good point, Stacey. That really is.
I'm having a creative thought, or so I think. I almost like thought bubbles, and maybe at the bottom of the page or at the bottom somewhere of maybe Elaine's newsletter, or somewhere within the chapters, maybe perhaps at the beginning or at the end. My initial thinking wasn't so much generic chatting, say in a Facebook arena. But
Right.
as I was going through the program itself, if I had an idea or an experience as a parent throughout my son's education, so something came up or I had a question, maybe then I would, perhaps have a question for either Peggy or Lisa within the material.
I love that.
One other quick note I put in my notebook as they were talking about their arenas of work. It seems to me that the great connection that I've come to realize is behavioral mindfulness is very similar to problem solution.
Wow.
So thank you for that.
No, thank you for that. I mean, that's an interesting paradigm, and again, as I said at the beginning and midway through, this is a living document. I mean, we never thought about the thought bubbles, but that's a really good idea because of the fact that the idea of people don't have to do it alone, and questions back and forth, for Peggy and Lisa, and a way to be able to make that happen, we'll resolve that issue and make it happen. The other thing is that, our grant is lifelong. So based upon COVID and based upon the needs of parents with children at home, boom, we developed a presence in, the school exchange. But in dialogue with Elaine, she had a good idea about, well, what about, early intervention? What about the transition arena? What about, adult development? One of the most underserved groups out there, family caregivers, are siblings. Siblings caring for aging parents, realizing that they're going to be soon caring for a sibling. So those types of things, I mean, this is not, this is something that we're looking to further and further evolve and grow. And the fact is that, in the comments that we've received, not only comments received from the world and the networks of intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities, but other arenas wanting to know, could they be, could they have access to this type of material? And as I said, even in my private practice, I'm referring people, to some of the videos because they're so rich in practice. All right, so I think we did what we had hoped to do. I think we did what was even beyond what we thought we could do. And again, that's because of you, Lisa, and you, Peggy. So with that, as we bring this to summary, and thank you, Stacy, and thank you, Elaine, as we bring this to summary, what better way to transition than, Lisa, if you could provide us with an exercise of the moment.
Okay, hi. I would just like to just take a moment and acknowledge caregivers. This is what this program is for. And especially in the situation that we're in right now, caregiver stress can be so debilitating. And under these conditions, it can be almost impossible. I'd like to give a shout out and to that you're not alone. What Larry, you said is that you're not alone. And we can come to this mindfulness moment right now knowing that we can take a moment for ourselves no matter where we are. If it's just a moment, if it's sitting in your car, if you're sitting in your bathroom, it doesn't have to be in a perfect place. Perfection is not the goal here. So let's just take a minute, wherever we are, and gently close your eyes. And we'll just start with a couple of breaths. Slow breaths in through our nose, feeling our belly expand. And letting that breath out through your mouth. Connecting with our parasympathetic nervous system, creating that relaxation response. And do that a couple of more times. Now coming into our bodies, trying to create relaxation, relaxing muscles in our face, in our shoulders. We often hold tension in our jaw, in our shoulders, in our back. Connecting to whatever we're sitting on, feeling the presence of where we're sitting, bringing ourselves out of our minds and into the intelligence and intuition of our bodies. And accepting where we are at the moment. Remembering that we are here right now and at this very moment, in this very breath, we're okay. It doesn't mean what happens 5 minutes from now, or 10 minutes from now, or a year from now, right? It's about this very moment. And we can take the time for ourselves to create that relaxation, which allows our body to de-stress and relax our minds so we can handle our situations with more clarity, more loving kindness to ourselves. And in return, we can contribute that to others that we thank yourself for taking this opportunity that you're giving yourself. One final breath. And thank you.
No, thank you. You know, not only breathing in for the now, but breathing in for the future. I love it. So Lisa, Peggy, Lisa, bravo. Okay, so we will see you soon. And Stacy, thank you, Elaine, as always, and anybody else that's involved and watching, please, thank you. And one of the things that we acknowledged is, and Lisa started with this today for the exercise, is the acknowledgement of you as caregivers. All right, thank you very much, and Godspeed.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.